Leo's insights are presented to challenge, inform, and encourage you in your quest to break free from school-based approaches to education. Building upon a foundation of unschooling, we sincerely hope these insights help you to consider how education can be truly unlimited.
I've been a part of the education industry for my entire life. In one capacity or another, I have seen or experienced a great many things that most people do not even know exist. Today I want to simply share a few stories that are related to the learning challenge, otherwise known as special needs or recently renamed inclusive education. Special needs or inclusive education is a school-based term that is actually code words for increased funding. Let me share an incident that occurred shortly before I officially ended my 25-year career as a high school teacher. Keeping in mind that funding is based on the September 30 student count, you will understand why a particular communique was sent to all teachers during the first couple of weeks of school. In it was a list of all the students who had been coded as special needs. Since I was teaching advanced academic grade 12 students, I most certainly did not expect to see any of them on that list, yet to my surprise, there were a few. When I asked the students why they were listed on the special needs roster, some were unaware of being there, while others were aware but indicated that they were not getting anything extra. One student in particular really had me baffled as to why she would be on that list. She was a brand new immigrant from Saudi Arabia, attending her first Canadian school, and I had the good pleasure of having her in my Biology 30 Advanced Academic Challenge program. This student was brilliant, never achieving anything less than 96% on any test she wrote. She was articulate, thoughtful, and a pleasure to engage in conversation and debates. To my utter surprise, when I asked her what she was doing on the special needs list, she informed me that she was listed as an ESL student because she was a new immigrant. Asking what was wrong with her English, since she spoke it very well and without an accent even, she replied that there was nothing wrong with her English or the other 3 languages which she spoke fluently. The school system took advantage of the fact that this student could be passed off as ESL for the extra funding involved simply because she had a funny name and was a recent immigrant. One more thing to make my point. The last sentence on that communique was, if you know of any other students who could qualify for additional funding, please let me know ASAP. Note that it did not say, if you know of any students who require additional services or resources or additional help or were special needs. Nope. Just who could qualify for additional funding, explaining why some of the students listed did not know they were listed, while others declared that they received no additional help in spite of being listed. When I started teaching back in the mid-1970s, there was no such thing as special needs. Indeed, when I was a child, no one would have guessed that I was dyslexic. The only 2 conditions that I was aware of was dumb or lazy, sometimes both. But as schools took on more of a role of a daycare rather than an institution of learning, parents of disabled children started wondering why they couldn't use this service. Once disadvantaged disabled students starting attending regular school, the term special needs was adopted to soften the idea of a child being disabled. After the term special need was coined, many other students were deemed to have them, especially when additional funding was made available to meet their special needs. Special needs funding opened the gate for the creation of a host of conditions which would require special funding, care. Suddenly overactive children had to be quieted down with medication, requiring additional funding. Smart kids needed special attention and special funding, and not so smart kids needed special care and special funding, and New disabilities were discovered which required special funding. As special needs programming became the latest craze in education, the cost rose accordingly. Finally, the government started putting in some regulations and restrictions. Individual program plans, or IPPs, had to be created for each child being registered for special needs funding. This was actually a good thing, except that there's always a way to get around a rule. Returning to my high school experience and the communique that I mentioned earlier, you will recall that I taught students who found learning easy. The number of these students who made the special needs list really bothered me. When I was told to complete IPPs, or these individual program plans, for my coded students, you may be shocked by this, I rebelled. I simply could not comply in a steal money from the government program. When the forms were placed in my mailbox, I would simply put them in another mailbox. This continued for weeks until the vice principal took me aside and asked me why I refused to do my IPPs. I asked him if I could ask him a question before I answered him, and when he said, of course, I asked him who would be reading these IPPs. When he answered that likely nobody would, I told him that he already had and knew my answer. I would love to say that this issue ended with that discussion, but it didn't. The administration found a lady who they could manipulate, and they had her complete my IPPs for me. How could she have possibly known what was going on in my classes? What a farce. What gamesmanship. What dishonesty. How does this have anything to do with providing services for students with special needs, especially when they categorically do not qualify as my upper academic students didn't? I realize that this story is probably nearly 20 years old now, but do you think anything has actually changed? I saw the charade from the inside, and I most certainly caution every parent not to bring this line of thinking home, where every child is special and everyone's special needs can be met. Let's celebrate our children's uniqueness and understand that they are priceless and therefore not for sale. Bring them home where their value is intrinsic rather than coded for funding. Really, aren't we all in need of special treatment? Aren't we all special needs? Are children learning challenged, or is it possible that they are more school challenged? If school challenged, then bringing them home is often the best way to mitigate the problem. However, keep in mind that bringing the school thinking home with them will only perpetuate the problem, not solve it.
We trust you were blessed by today's presentation. For more helpful information to guide you in your home education journey, please visit educationunlimited.ca and leogaumont.com. Be sure to like us and share us on Facebook.